This morning you're going to hear from 7 of the 10 students in our class. We had a couple of late family problems on the way here, so we'll have 7. You can follow along in the program. More or less, we're going to go in that order. And as I mentioned, this is just a really talented group of writers. It's a selective class. Everybody had to apply to be in the class. So, you know, I think you're going to be seeing some of the work that you hear today between covers before too long. So please help me welcome the novel year students, and they will introduce themselves as they come up. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Krista Adams. Nice to be here. Thank you for coming. I'm reading from my work in progress that's called Train Hoppers. It is about a runaway child bride who has to throw in with a gang of train-hopping smugglers during the Second Great Depression, which is about 30 years in the future. Brace yourselves. The railroads have reasserted themselves as the primary form of transportation, and your narrator's name is Birdie. This is the first scene in the book. From what I've seen so far, it's a bigger country than I ever imagined, chock full of people and things, but somehow emptier than a cracked jug. You think about this stuff when you've been riding the rails a while and seen the big cities spill into little ones and the little ones spill into nothing. Most people are too soft for this life. I have proven myself otherwise, and that is why I am in this situation. The big greasy one with the cap pulled low over his eyes clears his throat of whiskey and stale coffee. He's put his chair in front of the door as if I could somehow get my zip-tied hands out from behind my back and vault over him. A big oak desk is to my left, but the leather chair behind it is empty. If one of them was the boss, he'd be sitting in it. No, these two aren't in charge. I see right away I'm a freelance job. Greaseball shifts in his chair once, then is silent. The tall one leans somewhere behind me. I didn't get a good look at him when they grabbed me, but I can feel his presence like a spider in a web, tense and ready to bite if I struggle. I know better than to struggle. Unfortunately, I am well acquainted with the type of person who guards a train yard. Bulls come in all shapes and sizes, but most have a common streak of mean. If I struggle, they will hold me here longer. If I just tell them what they want to hear, they'll kick me out by tomorrow and tell me to keep off the rails. If I'm real lucky, I'll get a sandwich and a change of socks. If I'm even luckier, neither one will figure out I'm a girl and try to lay me down behind the desk and run away. I'm thinking Greaseball would be the most inclined. These two flushed us off in no man's land. That's the level, rocky gap before you hit the yard. Trance always tries to do a jump about 2 miles outside of town before the fence lines start. That's where the train slows up a bit. We'd hopped a long one, at least a mile of cars to hide in, but we were all sleeping off the wine from Eva's goodbye party when they found us. Rule 1, when hopping off, you don't want to get caught too close to a yard. They will wait for you there, sometimes with guns and dogs. Hopping on, they don't care so much. It means you are leaving town. Good riddance to you. These days, it's just taken for granted that unless you are rich enough to ride inside, roofs and railings are free for the brave. But you can't make a show of it. It's just common courtesy not to wave your courage in the face of those whose job it is to catch you. Like these 2 depot bulls, they don't really care what I do or where I go. I've walked past their type 100 times and climbed on a car while they were looking right at me. Their attitude is trash goes in the trash, and if I want to sleep in a coal bin tonight and wake up pressed flat under the next load, I'll just be another squashed hopper whose blood and guts they got to wash out of the cars in the morning. They only care if someone tells them to care, or if they think you might have a few bits they can shake loose. Greaseball shoots out a foot, rams it against the chair leg, tipping me backwards so fast my breath goes out in a puff and my feet shoot up in the air. But Spidey is there to catch me before I hit the floor. I'm looking straight up into his upside-down face, and his leer shows sharp white teeth. Maybe I was wrong about which one is more dangerous. But I know it's not me he wants, not really. Gonna ask you again, grunts Greaseball. I look into Spidey's beady black eyes, and I feel the tears I've been saving well up. I take a second to find my boy voice. I'm not by nature a dishonest person, so it has been a process learning when telling a lie will set you free or get you stuck in a depot jail with a couple of creeps. I've also learned that telling the truth can get you the same results. So knowing when to use one or the other is your primary dilemma. We're not smuggling anything, I swear. Spider tips the chair back onto all fours and walks around to look me in the face. Tears are pooling along my lower lids now, but I won't blink just yet. He grins. There are some who consider hopping a ride on a freight to be stealing from the lines. There are some that wouldn't even bother to interrogate a hopper and would just throw her, he pauses to show he's got me figured out for the girl I am, would just throw her under the next train just to watch her get smeared all over the tracks. Greaseball snorts like that would be the funniest thing he'd ever seen. Okay, now, I blink one gigantic salty tear up and over the dam. Spider backs off a smidge, satisfied he's getting to me. I take a breath and finally admit to myself that I'm a little worried. I want to ask where the others are. I want to know if they got away, or if leaving me with these two was their way of finally saying goodbye. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Jamie Holland. Does that sound right? I'm not used to doing this. Okay. This is the first chapter of my young adult novel about a high school party where things go very wrong for sophomore Maddie Schaefer. So my New Year's resolution is to get back to normal, I announced to Liz in the dressing room of Second Chance, our favorite thrift store. Mine's to have fun. Perfectly tanned from her Cayman Islands winter break trip, she shimmies into a stretchy silver dress and poses in front of the mirror. Oh, and to boycott my dad's wedding. Does my butt look big in this? Huge, I lie. I zip the fly of the baggy $5 Levi's and shove my hands into the pockets. Fun is the last thing I want. Fun is exactly what got me into trouble 2 months ago. I step out of the jeans, toss them in the definitely buy pile, along with overalls, a big blue V-neck, and a forest green cardigan with a hole in the elbow. God, I'm jet-lagged, Liz says as she peels off the dress. She wins the prize for being the queen of first world problems. As she pulls another dress over her head, this one light green to match her eyes, I pull my phone out of my back pocket and shoot random things like the air vent's horizontal lines and the rickety turquoise chair below it. Once Liz is snug in her new dress, she turns into a male model wannabe, flashing that easy smile as her wavy hair tumbles down her back. She finishes with a pouty behind-the-back pose that she'll post on Instagram. My recent shots of her for the upcoming art show are the out-of-focus ones where she's against a white wall wearing black. In the first shot, you see her, but gradually she becomes more and more blurred until finally she fades. The problem is that besides everything else that happened at the Halloween party, I lost my camera. I'm pretty sure it's still at Kevin's house, but it's not like I'm gonna go to his house. I will never go back to that house, ever. Let me see, she says, grabbing my phone. Oh my God, is my forehead really that big? Are my pores that huge? We go through this every time. Yeah, I lie, they're huge. Right as she pulls on her shorts and shirt, the bell attached to the door of Second Chance jingles, and a familiar voice rings out. Look at this heinous sweater. Usually Liz would roll her eyes like, ugh, them again, but she's busy picking off her dark nail polish. Black flecks fall to her bare thigh like dark chocolate shavings against golden brown. We call them the Screechers, Cammie and Nico, because besides strutting around with their long straight hair flowing behind them like they're in a shampoo commercial, they screech a lot and from everywhere. The cafeteria, the courtyard, the hallways. Kevin, stop, Cammie yells, and I freeze, a shower of panic settling deep in my bones. Wait, Liz says, maybe it's not. I go to the dressing room curtain and push it over an inch, enough to take him in with just one eye. It's definitely him. And he's jogging through ladies' sweaters with Cammie slumped over his back like a newly shot deer. Kevin! She's laughing as she lightly punches the back of his calves. He goes all the way to men's shoes, her body flopping with each step, her pink flip-flops dangling from her toes. I forced the curtain closed and turned to Liz, who's now embroiled in her phone. Her finger taps the glass screen repeatedly. Hold on, she says. I'm just inhaling deeply. I try to call up the when you're panicked breathing technique that I read online. Something about focusing on an object while counting as you exhale, but forget it. My eyes dart from wall to wall like a frantic housefly. I was trying to find this post, Liz finally says. What post? Because what post can possibly be relevant right now? She exhales and her back slumps. Meekly, she looks up. Okay, so I heard that he was maybe coming back, but I didn't want to tell you until I was sure. You heard? Why didn't you tell me? He tweeted something. He was like, I'm so done with nature. I stare at the area between her dark brows where tiny pores look like pinpricks. You follow him? Someone retweeted it. All I'd heard was that his parents sent him to a wilderness program. That was a day after the Halloween party, meaning I haven't seen him since that night. And now he'll be at school tomorrow, in the hallways, in the lunchroom. I'm serious, comes Cammie's voice as her laughter ripples through the store. Kevin, don't. Trying to ignore the pulsing inside me, I gather all the clothes from the floor and just stand there, holding onto the pile, including all of Liz's items too. A gummy residue of pizza dough sticks to the side of my molar, and I keep feeling it with my tongue, trying to flick it out, but it stays, stubborn as tar. Kevin, don't, were words I also used. Liz's hand reaches toward mine, the way she's done 1 billion times in the past 2 months. Don't go there, she says, meaning back to that night. But how can I not? It's going to be okay, she says, I promise. The creative visualization book on my bedside table says that if you can see what you want, then you're halfway there. But beyond wanting the whole memory to be erased from my brain, all I want is for it not to have happened, to get back to normal. When he was gone, I had a way better chance of getting back to normal, but now he's back for good, which means I'm screwed. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Santi Karamchetty, and my novel is called Reality Check. In it, a young woman named Jane collides with a large man at CVS. She doesn't think any more about it until the same man tries to grab her purse outside a restaurant that night. A CIA agent named Tom rescues her and takes her to a safe house. He believes her assailant, named Peterson, slipped something important into her purse at CVS and was trying to retrieve it. Jane gives Tom permission to examine the contents. He flipped it over and dumped everything on the table: my wallet, sunglasses, lipstick, mascara, compact, umbrella, 3 nail polishes, and, to my embarrassment, 3 pairs of panties. He picked up 1 pair with his index finger and raised his eyebrows. I snatched them from him. They were on sale. I didn't want to use a plastic bag when I bought them yesterday. Do you know how many plastic bags end up in our waterways? But they're brand new, so don't worry. See? I held out the price tag. Okay, no judgment, he said. But I could tell he was laughing at me on the inside. He sifted through my stuff for a few more seconds. Hey, I said, picking up a square keychain with an American flag on one side and the Capitol Dome on the other. This isn't mine. Tom took it and studied it, turning it over. I peered at it. Did he put that in my purse? Uh-huh. Tom held the tacky little souvenir up to the light and tilted it. There's no key on it. Doesn't matter, he murmured. He dug his thumbnails in one edge and pulled it apart like an Oreo. A tiny black square with gold lines, some wider than others, nestled in one half of the keychain. Wow, that looks like a miniature camera memory card. Tom carefully pried it out and examined it while it rested on the tip of his index finger. It was the size of a contact lens and thin as a business card. He turned it over to reveal a logo. What is that? I asked. At first, I only saw the black outlines of several tiny shapes on a white background. That kind of looks like a hammer, and it's smashing a rocket ship. An elongated hexagon appeared to be flying away from one side of the hammer, while a cylinder with several bent legs was flying on the other side. Tom didn't answer. Instead, he replaced the chip, reassembled the keychain, and continued studying it, turning it over and over. While he pondered it, I put my stuff back in my bag. It's getting late, I thought. Amber's gonna worry if I'm not at home like I said I'd be. But I was burning with curiosity. Why did he put it in my purse? I took it from Tom and rubbed the smooth plastic surface. He must have known I was following him. He didn't want to be caught with it on him. The light came on in Tom's eyes. He can't afford to be linked with whatever information is on that chip. So, are you with the police? Why didn't you arrest him? I'm a public servant of sorts, not a policeman. Then Tom looked almost sheepish. I couldn't apprehend him because I don't have the manpower to do it quietly. So you just let him follow me home? Tom wasn't looking so competent to me anymore. I started to get angry as I realized something else. And you let him attack me. I didn't know he was going to go after your purse. I was just following him to see what he would do next. It could have been worse, you know. He looked ready to knock you out to get that purse. Okay, so you saved me from a beating. Suddenly, the night caught up with me. I was tired from fighting and running. I pushed myself up from the table. Can you just point me in the right direction so I can go home? Tom looked alarmed. You can't go yet. He might still be after your purse. But I thought we lost him. We did, but he knows where you live, and that's the first place he'll go to look for you. I bit my lip. Then what about Amber? What if he breaks in and attacks her? Or he can't afford to attract any attention. He'll keep his distance. Your roommate is fine. Wait a minute. He knows I'm with you, so he must know you would have found the memory card thingy by now. So how about I just leave the bag with you? I opened it, planning to retrieve the essentials. Jane, I heard the pity in his voice. He knows you're with me. He knows we've probably found the memory card. I'll bet only a handful of people in the world have seen it. Now that you know he's linked to it, your life is in danger. Peterson and anyone working with him will not allow you to live. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Anita Lanthal. After this, I'll be signing my debut novel, which came out last year, which is a historical fiction set in 1936, has to do with the pro-Nazi movement in the United States and the efforts to spy on it. So anyone who would like a copy, please follow me when this is over. My new novel is called The Right One, and it is set in the future and has a 15-year-old extraordinarily bright computer scientist at the heart of the novel. As we begin, she's just graduating from high school. Rotten luck and random pairing stuck Annie with Natalie for that final, necessary English project before graduation. Our names were pulled out of a hat? That's so last century, all that random matching using no data whatsoever. Annie took a deep breath. In her head, hundreds of numbers lay with decaying banana peels and wadded up pieces of chewing gum in a large green garbage bag. Garbage in, garbage out, put a mess, and nothing can fix it. As the self-drive lift neared Miles Square Park, Annie's thoughts turned to how best to make it from the car to Natalie's building. Annie's mom had come home once from running around that park with a cut over her eye and a bruised knee. Just some high testosterones and their usual mischief. Mom dabbed antibiotic cream on the cut as she spoke. Annie's dad and mom argued about it, and Mom tried to win, as usual, but Dad hadn't let the subject go. We don't have a cure for that syndrome of violence. short of, well, just not having kids, he said. And so Annie had not told her parents she was going to Natalie's. English things, she said, back by 1 at the latest. Let them think she was going to Georgiana's like she always did. She'd be on her own in 14 days and 6 hours, more or less. The fluttering in her stomach increased when she thought about Stanford University, but she could not imagine anything she wanted more than to be there, on her own, without stuff like mom and proms and English to worry about. The lift stopped, and Annie swallowed hard twice. As the muscles in her neck tightened and her stomach did little flips, she got out. A clutch of high testosterone boys who couldn't have been more than 10 or 11 shouted catcalls and threw pebbles at Annie. One sharp stone smacked her cheek as if someone had slapped her. She hunched over and shoved her shoulder hard against the door of Groupus Foundation Housing Building 3. Got her. Nah, you didn't. Annie now stood in a small white lobby facing an elevator with yellow tape crisscrossed over it and a handmade sign with an arrow and a sketch of stairs on it. She stumbled on the ripped edge of the brown welcome all mat at the foot of the stairwell and then stomped up to the 3rd floor. In the hall, the odor of burnt tomato sauce lingered from a long past meal because the air had no escape. A newscast moderator's voice carried out from apartment 303. Annie heard, ex-President Ruffing landed in New Zealand too, as she headed towards 307, and Natalie. Annie knew Ruffing had left the country in disgrace. Just 3 weeks ago, her grandpa Harry had been ordered by both of her parents to lay off the politics, especially around the children, of whom she still counted as one. But not before she'd heard him say, packed the Supreme Court with buddies, got away with corruption, and now he's got a reality show streaming from New Zealand. Her mother said, cut it out, Dad, in that brain-crushing way she had. Annie began to wheeze, and her mother said, see what you did, as if it had been Grandpa Harry's fault. Natalie's door opened as if it had never been properly shut. My mom's still sleeping, Natalie said. She held her finger to her lips as if Annie could not figure out that her mother sleeping meant she should speak in a low tone. Too bad Annie's noise-mute earbud didn't filter out the human voice like it did artificial sounds. The apartment was maybe as large as Annie's bedroom and bathroom, definitely under 500 square feet. 2 to 4 people per apartment, 24 apartments in the building, so estimate 72 people here. And how many apartments around Miles Square Park? Natalie flicked her finger near Annie's cheek. Wake up! You were doing your trance thing. I was not. I've seen that from the 3rd grade until now. 9 years, I so know you. There's the little trance in which you get hazy and your eyes swim around and your breath wheezes, and then there's some great brilliant idea that no one else could possibly have thought of, except that we, your classmates, would have in just a minute or 2 more. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Liebau, and I'm going to be reading from my novel, The Plastic World of Ruthie Rosenblum. As we enter this segment of the novel, 12-year-old Ruthie has been complaining to her babysitter, Miss Flanagan, about how boring her father is. Ruthie heard a strange noise, a squeal she thought might have come from Miss Flanagan's invalid mother, but it came from the corner of the ceiling. Look it, said Ruthie, pointing. Something's up there. Jesus, Mary and Joseph, it's a bat, Miss Flanagan said. Mice are bad enough, but one with wings? She grabbed Ruthie's hands and pulled her into the kitchen, slamming shut the door. What about your mother? Asked Ruthie. Miss Flanagan opened the door a crack, and the creature flew across the room, flapping its wings. I'll take my chances. I can't go back in there. I'm calling your father. She picked up the phone and dialed. Gabe, she shouted, it's B. Can you come over here right away? Ruthie? No, Ruthie's fine. It's a bat in the parlor with Mother. Help! A pillowcase? Then to Ruthie, get a pillowcase off the clothesline. Miss Flanagan into the telephone receiver. Hairspray? Yes, on the vanity table in my bedroom. But that thing is flying around in there with Mother, and the noises it's making, Gabe, screaming like a banshee. While they waited for her father, Ruthie peeked through a crack in the door. The bat, hanging upside down at the far corner of the room, spread its wings and took flight. It flew in figure eights around the room, bumping into walls as if testing for a way out. It reminded her of a housefly trapped in a light fixture. How long will it take Dad, do you think? She asked. Miss Flanagan shook her head and grabbed the doorknob. You stay in here, she yelled. As she raced through the parlor, the brown Cordoba pulled into the driveway. Dad ran around the house and came in through the back door. Where's Bee? He asked. She said she'd be right back. Ruthie held up the pillowcase. Where's the bat? Asked Dad. In there, said Ruthie, pointing to the parlor. It was flying around everywhere. You should see it. Bee, did you find the hairspray? Dad called out. Yes, but I can't run back through there. I just can't. Aren't they supposed to sleep during the day? What's going on with this thing? Miss Flanagan stood paralyzed in the hallway across the parlor. Dad said, toss me the can or roll it. Nothing is more terrifying than lying in wait for a bat to sink its fangs into your neck. A chill brushed against the lace curtains. An unsuspecting paper boy tossed the evening news onto the stoop. Miss Flanagan's old mother coughed. Miss Flanagan rolled the can of hairspray across the room. Dad reached for the can and climbed up on the sofa. Where did you go? He whispered. The bat had landed on the edge of the window trim above the table. Look at you, more scared than anything. The bat was plastered to the wall, spreading and folding its wings, but it wasn't taking flight. It seemed to be blinking and looking around the room. They could hear it screeching softly, fangs showing as it opened and closed its mouth. Dad should have tried at that moment while the bat was still, but he waited. Toss the pillowcase over here, Ruthie. Ruthie threw it, but it landed only a few feet from her and too far from Dad. Miss Flanagan rushed into the room and handed Dad the pillowcase, looking like she might faint. In amazement, Ruthie watched her father take the can and walk over to the table in front of the window. His steps were slow but steady, like a cat sneaking up on a canary. When Dad loosened his tie, Miss Flanagan muttered, Lord have mercy, and nibbled her fingernails. Dad ran a hand through his hair. It was sticking up at a funny angle, and he left it there. In the still air, a bead of sweat dripped down Dad's temple, getting lost in his bushy sideburn. Above the table, the bat had made a decision. It flapped its wings twice and jumped. So quick it seemed like a videotape played fast forward. Dad raised the aerosol can as he pressed the button. The hairspray hissed. The bat stiffened, plummeted, and lay there, wings splayed open on the braided rug, its eyes wide and blinking. Miss Flanagan ran to the table. She stopped in front of the bat, looking at it, and shuddered. How did you know how to do that would work? Just did, answered Dad. Let's get the thing outside. He picked it up with the pillowcase and brought the animal out the front door. When he noticed Ruthie following him, he warned, Don't get so close. After Dad left the bat in the woods, he returned to the cottage, where Miss Flanagan actually wrapped her arms around his shoulders and hugged him. Thank you so much. I don't know how you knew how to do that. Read it somewhere, said Dad. He took Ruthie's hands and squatted so he could look her straight in the eye. As soon as the rain begins, the hairspray will wash off, and it will be fine to fly, but mad as anything. So don't go anywhere near that animal. You got it? Got it, said Ruthie. After Dad climbed into the Cordoba and drove away, Ruthie and Miss Flanagan sat on the porch, watching the stiffened bat lie on top of the pillowcase in the woods. Ruthie stared in baffled anticipation, her eyes glued to the spot in the woods. Look it, Miss Flanagan, look. It's just sprawled out there. And its wings are starched, but it's gonna be fine. Did you see my dad? He showed up and took charge. He fixed this with nobody getting hurt. Did you see that? Miss Flanagan leaned over and kissed the top of Ruthie's head. Now there's one less question about that father of yours. Ruthie smiled. True. That father of yours is kind and smart. If there's a way to solve a problem without harming anyone or doing long-term damage, he's the one to do it. They watched as the rain started. The bat flopped around on the pillowcase like a goldfish who had escaped the bowl. It opened and closed its wings and let out a screech. It took flight, then it disappeared into the trees. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Lizzie Timlin, and I will read the opening of my fantasy science fiction novel, in which humans have created self-aware and intelligent animals through medical experimentation. There comes a moment when you know you've grown up. Henry, a wiry and clever Airedale, knew this in the way that only people used to know. Deeply, in his heart, in his gut, and in his mind. He paused beneath a leggy forsythia, its flowers now barely visible on the soil, and watched his family drive away. Forever, he thought. They were his human family and all he'd ever known. He had poured all his love and all his being into them. He sighed and straightened his spine, shoulders firm. He was alone. His other family, his animal family, was depending on him now. Henry was the only talker among them, and they needed him to find the house where they would be helped. Only moments before, Molly and Paul had cried for him. "We love you, Henry. We're sorry." They both sobbed. Henry was sobbing too, though his tears mingled into his fur and were not so easy to see as the streaks on a smooth cheek. "Mommy says it's not safe for you here anymore," Paul said for them both, lip quivering. Molly, his special one, spoke no words. She spoke with her hands because she was different from the others. The others could speak with their hands when they wanted to, but Molly spoke only with her hands, never with her mouth, and she would never answer him if he spoke to her with his mouth. On the drive here, Henry had pretended with Paul and Molly that everything was normal. They were going on an outing to the park. Everything would be wonderful. But he knew that everything was changing, and Molly did too. Inside the car, she had her face pressed up to the window in the back seat, and her sadness ran down the glass in thick smears. She looked him in the eye and brought her arms together over her chest in a hug. That was hand talk for love. The mom, as he called her, lowered her window. "Use your words, Henry. Use everything we taught you. Words, reading, numbers. Find other Aya, other enhanced animals. You're one of them, and they will protect you. There'll be a new chance for you." In their final day together, he had smelled their human sadness for the first and last times. Their life had been so happy together until the expulsion decree was handed down in the last 48 hours. As they drove off, he found his voice and barked out, "Goodbye. I love you too." Their car rounded the corner and disappeared from view. Although they couldn't see him anymore, he raised his right paw and signed "sad" by drawing a trail of tears down his cheek. Henry was only 2 years old, barely an adult. He turned to the other animals that were with him. 2 of them were new Aya and had only just recovered basic functioning after their surgery. Not even rudimentary language yet, although they were understanding a lot. They were Eliza and George, his sister and brother from another litter. Both were fine examples of Airedale breeding, as Mom used to say. Their mother was there with them also, and she was pregnant again. She would not whelp for another month. In addition, 2 non-Aya kittens that the family had adopted from a rescue had become part of the Airedale family. The family had had hopes of enhancing them too, but then the decree was issued, and Mom and Dad decided to give all the animals a chance at life outside the city. Late last night, the vet had visited the house and told them of a way out. It was determined to drop them all off in a neighborhood road with instructions and a heavy heart. Henry led his family by authority and need, not by words. They trusted him, and they understood that he, young as he was, knew more than they and was in charge. He pointed himself north, then up a side street, and onto a path that skirted between 2 homes. Behind the houses, he found a small stream. They all walked on the water's edge, avoiding cars and people. The one small blessing was that the decree had happened in early summer. The water was cool but lovely, and morning sunlight dappled the surface. They quickly arrived at a large tunnel through which the small tributary flowed. The rumble and fumes of many cars flowed down from above. He remembered that this tunnel cut underneath a major highway, the Beltway they called it. Once outside this highway that ringed the city, Mom had assured him they would be safe. Henry turned to Eliza and George and sat facing them. Then he touched his right paw to the top of his left paw. Sit. They sat, and the others copied them. The non-Aya animals couldn't follow his directions the way the Aya could, but they would imitate something that George and Eliza did every time. His expression serious, he forcefully motioned them to stop, to stay. They all waited for him on the bank by the entry hole. Henry waded into the dark tunnel. Thank you very much.
This is your book. I'm trying to think if it's going to go again, or if it's going to be done. Okay, we'll go. Hi, I'm Paul Wren, and I'll be reading from my work in progress, Richard, Prince of Harbortown. It's a college campus drama with a lot of rowing and Shakespeare mixed in. So this scene occurs kind of right after a big race, which the protagonist has done very well, but there's an exciting twist. So. Sophia climbed the short stairwell onto the Harbortown bus to find her freshman teammates, 2 to a seat and always in the front, as was the mandate by the team's old guard, smiling and happy to see her. "Great job, Sophie, that was awesome," a thin, wet girl said through shivers. "Yeah, Sophie, really incredible," said another. "Harbortown hasn't been 4th at the chase in 3 years. Should make for a fast spring boat." Sophia felt at ease and thanked her teammates while burrowing herself in a giant fleece jacket that read Harbortown on the left breast. This was a victory, and as the bus began to roll out of the Princeton parking lot, Sophia began to relax. Finally, after weeks of extreme scrutiny on her technique and fitness for the stroke seat of the varsity boat. There had been a lot of controversy, as was to be expected, over putting an unexperienced freshman recruit in the stroke seat of the flagship boat of the Harbortown lightweight program. After 7 or 8 head-to-head seat races against older members of the team, it became quite clear, however, that Sophia was the woman for the job. The chase would be the final test. And I passed, Sophia thought blissfully, as she began to slide her big wireless headphones over her ears and nod off to sleep on the ride home. She had hardly begun to doze when she was woken by a girl in the seat behind her. "Hey, Sophie, sorry to wake you up. Kelsey says the varsity girls want to see you for a minute." Sophie sleepily nodded and shifted her headphones around her neck and walked to the back of the bus where 8 girls, 7 rowers and a coxswain, crowded around a bright little screen held by none other than the team captain herself. Sophia completed the lineup. "Hi, guys. Aaron said you wanted to see me." Kelsey looked up from her iPad leeringly, like a tigress ready to strike, but changed her looks quickly to a friendly, affable effect. "Come sit next to me, Sophia. We're just watching some footage from the race. There's some stuff you should see." Sophia warily stepped over the bags and piles of wet clothes to sit next to her captain and looked at the iPad currently on pause. The little picture showed Sophia in a grimace, catching part of her oar on a wave. Kelsey pressed play. The group looked on attentively for about 10 seconds before Kelsey said something. "Did you see it, Sophia?" Sophia nodded. 5 seed is late at the catch. Marissa is yanking it with her arms at the finish, causing her to wash out. Andy and Bao keeps looking out of the boat, causing her also to be late. And, well, you're a little early yourself, Kelsey. This was Sophia's honest assessment of the boat's issues. She'd been given a good education on technical points by her high school coach. And in many video sessions, she identified boat issues that eventually led to team success. In Sophia's experience, these suggestions were usually taken well, but in this instance, her relative inexperience opened her up to criticism. "Actually," Kelsey said with a flip of her golden hair, "you've got a late feather, and you're connecting poorly at the catch. And that's causing you to catch late, catch deep, and try and make up for it at the finish with your big arms. That doesn't work so well when you hunch like that at the end of the stroke." Kelsey had dealt a heavy blow, but Sophia, surprise uncharacteristic to her nature, returned again with an honest assessment of the situation. "Well, I really think the difference is more stylistic than anything. A late feather is perfectly appropriate in a headwind like that, and while my catch is a little deep, it is direct and fast, and that's really more important to the drive phase than much else. The finish, however, you're right about. It needs work, and yanking it in is something I carried over from the single, where these big arms are actually an effective way to move the boat. But I agree that I'm slumping, and that can be fixed with a little more work on my core and more stamina training for late in the race. Maybe we could suggest to Lisa some longer rows. I'm sure she would agree that's a good way to improve our stamina." Several of the girls, seeming to agree with Sophia, nodded. One almost said something before Kelsey eyed her viciously, her status as leader of the pride slightly challenged. "Amy, would you please grab the scale?" The smallest girl, the coxswain, still shivering, even in 2 pairs of sweatpants, a couple of long-sleeved shirts, and a big fleece-lined rowing jacket, hopped up off the seat with the strength of a larger woman, deftly lifted the big black lockbox that bore the blue Harbortown H. The box was opened, and Amy set to plugging in the heavy silver scale to the digital readout. "Are you going to make me weigh myself?" Sophia laughed incredulously. "What's the problem? I made the weigh-in, and the race is over. We won't have to weigh in again until spring." Kelsey said nothing and waited. The girls looked on in terror as Sophia began to undress. She was becoming nervous. She had eaten plenty after the race and knew her weight would be artificially high. There would be no way to measure that, however, and this was clearly done as an attempt to embarrass her. The stress of stepping on that scale is like nothing else imaginable, especially under the judging eyes of distrustful teammates. Sophia stepped onto the scale. 142.5. "That's not good, Sophia," Kelsey said. "Well, I was eating like crazy after the race, like everyone else. I'm sure everyone is pretty heavy right now." Kelsey flipped her hair. She took her clothes off, item by item, until she was standing there, gaunt, tall, and very white, in her sports bra and spandex shorts. She stepped on the scale. 134.7. So yes, a little heavy, but you're huge, Sophia. You can't pull this kind of stunt once the real racing starts in the spring, or we will absolutely replace you with someone else. No one is going to be able to lose weight for you, so you better start with the dieting. From now on, you're to weigh yourself when I get to practice every morning." Sophia was on the verge of tears. "Okay, Kelsey." Kelsey gave a smarmy smile. "You've got some good speed, Sophia. It would be a shame to waste it." Sophia nodded. "That's all?" "Yep." Sophia marched back to her seat. Most of her freshman teammates were asleep and hardly noticed her return. This was all right with Sophia. She slipped her headphones back over her head and began to cry, quietly, until the tiredness from the race and the harrowing weigh-in forced her to sleep. Thanks a lot.